in Afghanistan since 16th centuries. We had three periods of visual arts in Afghanistan, like 3 times changing in visual art in Afghanistan. The first time it was in Kamaluddin Behzad. It was in Timurian time. As I'm sure you heard the name of Ustad Kamaluddin Behzad. He's very famous in miniature. And then in 1919, when Afghanistan became independent from the previous British, then the Afghan government decided to establish an art school, and they sent one of our artists, Professor Hurmat Maimanegi, to Germany, and also Ustad Breshna. These two, they played a very important role in visual arts in Afghanistan, and it means by their activities, by establishment of this school, we have the second period of visual art changing in Afghanistan. And then after 2002, we established the Center for Contemporary Arts Afghanistan, and this is the starting of the third period changes in Afghanistan regarding visual arts. Why we established CCA in Afghanistan? Because since long time, around 100 years, we saw some kind of repetition. The same subject, the same method was repeating, still it's repeating and repeating, because from one side there was a strong censorship from the outside, it means from the government, and from the other side, this censorship from outside changes to self-censorship, and it caused the repetition of some same subject and same method. In reality, the daily life was completely different than what we saw in our paintings, in our calligraphy, in our sculpture. It means they wanted to escape from this reality, and they lived outside of that daily life. For example, when the Russian aggression in Afghanistan, and there was killing, bombing, and putting in jail, and we had a very bad life in that time, which is still going on. So we couldn't see any of that bad happening in our artworks because the art had a self-censorship. They didn't explain that situation. Maybe it was dangerous for them. Maybe they didn't want to accept this risk. There could be different reasons, but finally we couldn't saw that life in their artworks. For me, it's very soon to talk if the people like it or not. What's the reaction of the society? First, we should introduce contemporary art to the society. First, at least we should introduce art to the society and then talk about their reaction. From one side, and all over Afghanistan, we have 2 faculty of fine arts in 2 provinces. The limitation of formal art education in Afghanistan is one of the basic problems here in Afghanistan. Secondly, we don't have art writers to write about art. The third, to write critics. When we have an exhibition, when we have a very strong exhibition, it's not possible to introduce this exhibition through the media because they have only 2-3 questions: how many artists, how many art pieces, and for how long, these things. To see lots of photographers here in Kabul, especially the young generation. From the other side, I know that this is a new movement in Afghanistan. As I see, generally, they are emphasizing on technique. And there's strong needs for young generation to work with them, to develop these ideas and concept in their artworks.
The Turkos Mountain Institute, they are running a project. It's called the Contemporary Art Project in Afghanistan. And the experience for the last few projects, we found that our students, which we are teaching them the traditional crafts and techniques of art, they are very good artisan for the transmission of traditional art to the contemporary art. By passing of time for the last decades, we can see, we can feel that the young generation is going to, they themselves, they are going to preserve their traditional art and craft. And that's a very positive image for the Afghan cultural heritage.
The artist or the photographer condition is not so good here because you could not to sell the arts works here. That at least this should be a kind of income for them to make it or to go to some remote area or choose a good subject, and then they should send it for selling or for computation. There also was some small computations, but the amount or the income is not good. So for this, I think supporting of the artists is one of the things which is the government and also international community could do. Support them. This is very, very necessary that at least we should record very important issue because the time is passing and we are losing a lot of things. You know, every day in Afghanistan is something is happening, and we should record it by films, by photography, even make a film for this. If you are not doing like this, the time is passing and we are losing a lot of time.
I think an Afghan perspective is more like a double-edged sword. On one end, our emotions are very hard to control. We have to be emotional. We've got an attachment, and I don't think we can deny that. This is home. This is our country. But on the other hand, we understand now, after many years of working with international colleagues, that we also have to be objective. So I think we are borrowing the objectivity part from years of working with international media, but I dare to say that any international journalist could come here and have the insight that some of the Afghan journalists have. That will never happen. And I think that's one of the beauties of having international journalists work with Afghans, because you've got strengths matching strengths. So I see it a mutually beneficial relationship. I see a convergence of interest, and it has worked over the years. Afghanistan University came into my mind because for many, many years I'd been traveling all across the country, working for the BBC at that time, first as a fixer translator, later on as a producer, and then a reporter. And I thought to myself, the world deserves to see the other side of Afghanistan, the beauty, the natural beauty, the resilience of the Afghan people, the hope that exists in the normal life that is there in some of the most remote and impoverished areas in Afghanistan. And once I started putting the hashtag into use, I was quite surprised how much interest there was from people all over the world. And to be very honest, I think Afghanistan is one of the most beautiful countries when it comes to natural beauty. And it's been hidden, unfortunately, from the rest of the world because we've always got so focused on the violence, on the bad news that also unfortunately exists. So that was the idea, and I'm going to continue to do that. For examples, you've got Afghans who are on social media who are doing the same thing. They've got access. They're either government officials, they're parliamentarians, or they're members of civil society. They travel around the country, and in a very creative way, they're using social media. Different than what I do, but probably more effective in other means, And you just have to see what happened with the sad killing of Farkhunda, the mob that carried it out. It was people like us. It was the social media that put the pressure on the National Unity Government, on President Ghani, CEO Abdullah, and many others that, look, that is wrong. And it worked. So social media is a constructive tool to correct the wrongs that exist in our society. And I think the trouble with Afghanistan these days is that you've got these smartphones, iPhone 6, iPhone 5, Galaxies, and most people are taking advantage of that. Whenever an incident happens anywhere in the country, I immediately go to Facebook pages of people that I know or I try to find, and they have all what I need. In Badakhshan, yesterday we had a landslide. The day before yesterday, and all the pictures are uploaded by a local policeman who comes from that village. So you also have a country where people have smartphones. There's the 3G generation. There's the Facebook, the Twitter, but we need professional photographers. We need to train a generation of photographers who can really do photography in its right way. And I am not a professional photographer. I never took photography classes. So I think there are the professional photographers who have done a great job. We have some who have been internationally recognized.
We haven't had so far many exhibitions by Afghan photographers, which is a real problem, and we would really like to do that. It would be wonderful to exhibit Afghan pictures. The closest we've come to that was the Kabliwala exhibition, which was by Nazez Afroz and Moska. And that was really interesting because there you had a really intimate picture of the Afghan community in India. And people came to that exhibition and they loved it, and they really were fascinated by seeing how Afghans in India were reproducing Afghanistan, but were still part of India. So there was this sense of being accepted in two places, or being part of two different cultures. But I think maybe there is a real challenge for Afghan photographers. One is maybe a reluctance amongst fellow Afghans to be photographed by Afghans. But then maybe also, sometimes we foreigners get more credit than we deserve, because Afghans think if it's foreign, it must be good. If it's Afghan, it's probably not very good. And that's also something that needs to be got rid of. The thing that we do here at ACKU is we have these exhibitions that show photographs and images that have been carefully constructed and carefully prepared. And in a way, we're trying to be a counterweight to the new media that just swamps people with images all the time. And people would much rather see an image than read a text because it's less work. So what we're doing at ACKU is saying, look, these are the product of hard work, of careful thought and reflection. And that's required. It's not enough just to go out and go snap, snap, snap. But it's hard for young people who haven't grown up with photography and who haven't seen how it's developed. And so you do get swamped, and you just get... It's hard to find the gold amongst the dross. I'm not a photographer, but taking photographs means learning how to look. But also with our archive, it's learning how to look at the photograph and to see, what does this tell me? What does it tell me about the socioeconomic context at the time? What does it tell me about the political situation at the time? What does it tell me about gender relations? What does it tell me about generational relations? What can I learn about transport, about housing, about culture, about ways of living? The exhibition that we have here now, which has John Burke, but also has a number of other photographers of the time, that's what's so fascinating about it, and why so many people are coming to see it.